Welcome to Peaks of Yore, a game set in late 1800s Scotland. Forever! In it, you play as a peak bagger. Your goal? Climb every mountain. And your tools? A meter that shows you how high up you are, chalk, which lets you grip rock holds better, goth girl strap-ons, which can help with jumping off of walls, and safety rope, which can catch you if you fall. And coffee, which when drinking it can give you a short boost. And of course, a golden blunt. We're here to conquer one of the most challenging mountains of all, the Solemn Tempest. This mountain is nearly 7.5 kilometers tall, and we're gonna climb it. The mountain starts us off with a very intimidating view, and this mountain is so much taller than the rest of them that it comes with a unique mechanic, the biovac. Basically, this lets us put it anywhere on the mountain and we can save and quit our game. This mountain is so tall that it is the only mountain that has this feature. So let's whip out our pickaxes like it's Modern Warfare 2's cliffhanger and get to work. The climb begins with a short ice wall and we make quick work of it. We grab onto a hold and need to use our momentum to swing up to the next ones. And I've already fallen. This was not going to be an easy task. Still, we managed to get the jump and reach the next few holds relatively easily. We then come across this jump which requires us to grab onto this icicle with a pickaxe in midair. We also use our goth strap-ons to go up to the next icicle as well. And then we utilize them to go back down. This mountain is unconquered in the game world, and every time I try and climb it, it angrily forces me back down. I, however, was determined to reach the top, no matter the cost. Soon we get back to where we were and make the jump with relative ease. We even come across one of the inhabitants that perished on the mountain, but the mountain wasn't going to stop us, so we ascended with defiance. We grab on the holds and use our body as momentum to swing upwards and grab onto the little rocks we could. We come across these rocks to give us a small amount of time before we lose our grip, but we managed to grab on the icicle just before we got dropped off. We utilize our strap-ons to go flying up the mountain, since we wanted to be the ones on top. We come across a small icicle tip, which is what mine looks like, and manage to grapple onto it. We come across more icicles and need to jump off the sides of them in order to reach new ones. Now we need to jump off this sliding rock and reach the new icicles, but thankfully that wasn't too difficult. Next we come across some more icicles, and some of these break. So in order to not fall to the bottom again, we have to meticulously test which ones break and which ones don't. We then need to use momentum to swing upwards to the next icicle, and we miss, but at least we're able to recover it. Once we're back, we manage to swing and stick the landing this time. This reveals even more icicles, but with the use of strap-ons, we're able to fly off of them. And as quickly as we came, as quickly as we went down. But we were determined, and we flew back up the mountain with a vengeance. The mountain was not too happy with my determination, however, and we quickly found out that these types of icicles break if you use them too many times. And so back down we went. Once we got back up to where we were, it wasn't too much of a hassle, until we fell back down. Thankfully we didn't fall too far, so it wasn't too bad to get back up to where we were. We then come across the first Richard, and we need to swing on his corpse to get to the next icicle. Thankfully it wasn't too hard, and the next few icicles weren't that bad either. We then reach a section where we lose grip between all of these types of rocks at the same time. Further up we try to jump to the next icicle and it did not work out. Thankfully, even though we fell to the bottom, we managed to make it back to where we were in a couple of minutes. This time we noticed there was a rock before the icicle, so we actually made the jump this time. Our next few jumps we utilized the strap-ons to fly up to the next icicles. This section is not too much to talk about, so we'll just skim through it. We then reach this section where we need to swing up to the next icicle, but that was not pretty difficult. We then reach this section where we need to reach that icicle all the way over there. This was the first spot I put down my rope. Turns out putting down that rope was a good idea. Thankfully the jump wasn't too bad and we make it. Further up we reach the section where the mountain starts to go horizontally. So if we fall, we'll fall back down to the bottom without anything to catch ourselves on. And that is exactly what happened. Thankfully, however, we managed to black out on one part of the mountain that wasn't completely sloped, and, well, just so happened that there was a few icicles down here to catch us on our fall. The next time we get up to this spot, we realize that the climb here is actually pretty easy. We then reach a section of the mountain that goes horizontally to the left, the opposite of the direction we once were. So if we fell now, that means we would fall below the section and have to climb even further. The section itself, however, was not too difficult, mainly due to the little goth girl strap-ons we have that make it so we can go flying up the mountain with super high jumps. We also reached some more of the icicles, and these didn't pose too much of a challenge. We then reached this section of the mountain that has a steep vertical climb, and we quickly use our goth strap-ons to go flying up it. We also just barely managed to nib the tip of this icicle. And same goes for this next one, which we almost managed to fall off of. We also get to this next section, which had a choice between an icicle that breaks or these smaller ones with a very small amount of window to actually hold onto them. And also a part of this section requires us to maneuver while going up and looking at a weird angle. We also get to use our strap-ons to go up to the next icicle, which we almost actually miss. We also get to a section of the mountain where we have to go upwards and horizontally at the same time, all while losing grip on these rocks. And we come across even two more Richards who are doing some very naughty things in the closet. We used their suicidal nature to let us through the next few icicles. Unfortunately, the mountain didn't like us exploiting the clinically depressed, and it kicked us back down. All the way to the bottom. And this fall would end our first attempt at climbing the mountain. And if you're wondering how big the fall was, nearly 1.5 kilometers. Who does this mountain think they are? I'll have it know I graduated from the top of my class in the Navy. In the words of Rusty Cage's Lives of Flies song, once we hit rock bottom, there's only one way left to go. It takes us a bit of time, but we go back up, and we reach a new section of the mountain, around about in the 2000s meters. A straight vertical climb, but with a catch. Boulders falling from the top, trying to force me back down, getting physical. And I like it rough. We flew up that section like it was nothing but a cum stain on my strap-ons. We come across another horizontal section of the mountain, looking even narrower than the last. We grab onto these rocks and go flying up at them. We then reach one of the most difficult jumps in the mountain. This spot just requires a rope. To do this jump, I had to push myself up onto the side of the mountain. Then I had to jump off of it while facing backwards and 180 degrees and grab onto the icicle above me. The mountain was getting harder, and it was throbbing. Thankfully, the next few sections of the mountains weren't too bad, just utilizing our big jumps and momentum. We then reach a section of the mountain where icicles are hanging overhead of us, and we have to utilize our momentum to jump to the next ones. This is one of the more difficult sections of the mountain, so we use a rope here to not lose progress. Thanks to our rope, we managed to make it further up the mountain into the new sections. This section contained a new Richard, and we happily swung on his corpse. We then reach this section where we need to swing ourselves upwards in order to reach the next few holds. We do pretty well and manage to reach the next icicle. We then come across these types of rocks, which when we put our hands in them, slide us down, and we have to do horizontal jumps to reach the next ones. This is soon followed by more upward swinging. Our gothic strap-ons also help fly up this part of the mountain, which makes it very easy. We then reach this section where we need to do more big jumps and to reach more icicles. With the icicles getting smaller the further we went. It was almost like this mountain is where all the circumcised foreskins went. This section of the mountain is mainly just utilizing our jumps to get to the next few holds. Same with this section a little further up, but the jumps were a little bit harder. This next section requires us to Spider-Man between the two walls and get higher at the same time. It's not too bad, but shortly after the swings between the rocks start getting further and further apart, and we reach a section of the mountain with even more overhead hanging icicles. And these icicles were a lot more difficult than the last ones, and a lot more stressful too. This is because the climb is horizontal, so if I fell back down, there would be nothing for me to grab onto, and I would fall to the bottom. But despite making it through that entire section, we fell at a new one where we had to swing and jump onto a rock on the other side that we couldn't see. However, as we made it past, I accidentally unattached my rope, and we fell back down to the bottom 4 entire kilometers, and that's where attempt 2 left us off. So once again, we head back to climbing up, and let's just skip to the part where we were up to before. And with that, we made it back, and this time we didn't do anything stupid. So we managed to make it to the next few holds. We come across a section where we need to swing into an icicle, and 5 more riches, so we happily swung on their suicidal Spider-Man corpses. We also needed to use one of said corpses to reach this next icicle over here. And we managed to do it. Our next few jumps involve using our strap-ons to go flying up to the next icicles, but this was pretty easy and also fun. Next we reach this short section where we have to grab onto small rocks that lose grip and switch between pickaxes to grab onto the ice, which is actually pretty difficult. Due to the small icicle size and something else, more boulders. These would be difficult because I had to grab onto small bits of icicle, grab on the rocks that also lose grip on, and dodge boulders at the same time. Thankfully though, this section was mostly vertical, and as long as I didn't fall off the parts of the climb that were horizontal, I would be fine. To be on the safe side, we roped a few times so if a stray boulder hits us, we wouldn't fall to the bottom. We then reached this jump where we need to jump off the side of the mountain and land on this icicle in midair, which is not as hard as the backwards jump earlier. This next section of the mountain has these little rocks that we lose our grip on quite quickly, and midway through them we have to switch to our pickaxes and land on the small icicles. We also have a heart attack inducing fall right here, and I'll just play it out in its entirety. Yeah, we somehow managed to save it, and if I missed that little bit of ice right there, I think we would have fallen to the bottom. But we did not, so we kept going up, and soon we were back to this really difficult section. And as you can see, this section was tough, despite having things to catch ourselves if we fell. The icicles are just way too narrow. But we make it past that section and get to a new part of the mountain. This part was just mostly more icicles and momentum swinging, so it wasn't as stressful as before. However, the next part after this was, because it was going horizontally to the left, which meant that if we fell, we would fall past where we just were. Oh, and by the way, the boulders were back. Thankfully there was another Richard here to help us with our efforts. And this section had even more of the small icicles that we had just spent our time going through. And we had more of those jumps that required us to swing upwards and jump on the rocks that we couldn't see. And as you just saw, the boulders were still around. And to top it off, we had another section with even more of the small icicles. We then reach this next section of the mountain, which is a lot calmer since all we have to do is jump off the side of the mountains with our strap-ons. Plus, another Richard. I'm starting to think that these all aren't the same guy. Our next section of the mountain meant that when we jumped off of it with our strap-ons, we would have to go further to reach the next icicle, meaning we needed bigger jumps. We also get to a section of a mountain that requires us to jump off the side of a slope and then in midair grab a small icicle from the next one. And yes, we had to do this multiple times. And also yes, it was severely butt clenching each time. We also make it to this section of the mountain, which has a slowly loose grip between the rocks and has us climbing up them at a weird angle. Because of this reason, we missed this jump. Now we didn't fall too far back down, but we missed a different jump on the climb back up. But surely we would be able to catch ourselves on something this time, right? We were able to do it before. So, why can't we do it again? And we blacked out. And so we fell. (5,862 meters. So we basically fell 6 kilometers. And that's where I would leave this attempt off. Except I wasn't giving up. And this proved that we could do it. We could climb this mountain. So what if I fell 6 kilometers? The mountain is 7.5. We were almost there. So we did the only thing we could do. We did the thing we had to do. We were gonna climb the mountain, and we were gonna do it today. After all, I'm a top, not a bottom. We were flying up the mountain, and we were gonna get back to where we were quick. No more failing, no more falling. This time we were gonna succeed, and we were gonna succeed in style. And with that, we had made it back above where we were to a new section of the mountain. And we were cutting through this new section like it was butter. The mountain didn't respect us, so we don't respect the mountain. We grab onto these small assholes with our ice picks so many times that it was nothing anymore. Going to the right doesn't even matter. We were confident enough to know that we could jump to the next ones and skip a whole bunch of the stress. We weren't even anywhere near the top, but we knew it wouldn't take that long for us to get there. But my whole demeanor changed once I realized something extremely important. We only had 10 ropes left, and this was probably the most difficult section of the climb. I started having doubts. Would 10 ropes be enough? Would I be able to make up the rest of the mountain with just what I had left? There was no music playing. It was just me, the mountain, and the wind now. The jumps were getting so hard. This little icicle was even narrower than the last time. 9 ropes left. The jumps getting harder, the gaps getting bigger, and the stress growing exponentially. Soon we only had 6 ropes left. We were getting higher up the mountain, but we were using lots and lots of more rope. Soon we only had 3 left. Then we had 2. And finally, 1. We had 1 rope left. And we were 7,400 meters up in the air. Would 1 rope be enough? We were so close to the top. I could feel it. I could see it. And we needed to use that rope. But would it be enough? I shudder to imagine what fall I might have had if I didn't have that rope right there. Our last one. But we managed to do it. We climbed to the top, 7,500 meters, and we made it. So we planted the flag, and we conquered the mountain. We also grabbed our stamp and our Mountaineer's book, and clicked the summit button. The climbing level, abysmal. And with that, there was only one thing left to do.